Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you're focused on your UPSC preparation, you know how vital it is to get a handle on the big global dynamics.
Absolutely. Understanding the underlying forces.
Exactly. And today, we're diving into a framework that really helps make sense of some fundamental tensions affecting democracies everywhere. Stuff that keeps cropping up in the news.
It's relevant for governance, international relations, core UPSC topics.
For sure. We're going to unpack Dani Rodrik's political trilemma.
It's a fascinating concept. Rodrik basically says, look, it's incredibly tough, maybe impossible for a country to have it all. Deep economic integration with the world.
Globalization, yeah.
Full national sovereignty and genuine mass democracy, all at the same time.
You usually get 2 out of 3, right?
Yeah.
That's the core idea. Trying to balance being plugged into the global economy, making your own independent decisions, and keeping your population politically engaged and happy. It's a real balancing act.
A tricky one.
Our main source for this deep dive comes from insights discussed in The Hindu, which many of you probably follow for current affairs relevant to UPSC.
It's a good source for these kinds of analyses.
So our mission today, to really get to grips with this trilemma, see how it gives you a lens to analyze what's happening nationally and internationally useful for both your mains and potentially prelims prep.
You start seeing news headlines differently, perhaps. Clashes between, say, IMF demands and national protests, or trade deals versus local jobs. Rodrik's framework suggests these aren't isolated things.
They're symptoms of this deeper tension. Okay, so let's quickly break down those 3 elements again. First, deep international economic integration, globalization. What does that look like practically?
Well, it's about flows, isn't it? Goods, services, money, capital moving easily across borders. Think multinational companies, complex trade deals, global financial markets all linked up.
The promise being efficiency, maybe lower prices, growth.
Theoretically, yes. More economic opportunities.
Than national sovereignty. This feels more straightforward.
It is. Fundamentally, it's a nation's right to govern itself, make its own laws, control its borders, manage its economy without someone else dictating terms.
Self-determination. Setting your own path on trade, immigration, monetary policy.
Exactly, that core independence.
And the third piece, mass politics or popular democracy.
This is about the people having a real say. Free elections, rule of law, government responding to public will. Also, things like a free press, active citizens.
The whole democratic machinery functioning properly.
Right. And Rodrik's big point, the core of the trilemma, is that trying to maximize all 3 of these at once just creates inherent conflicts. It's structurally very, very difficult.
Okay, so the source material, drawing on Rodrik, lays out 3 main ways countries tend to navigate this. Basically, picking 2 priorities. Let's look at the first one. Prioritizing globalization and democracy. This might mean sacrificing some national sovereignty. The EU gets mentioned here.
The EU is a classic case study. To get that deep economic integration, the single market, free movement, and maintain democratic standards across members, countries had to pool sovereignty.
Give up some control, essentially.
Yes, cede authority to Brussels on things like trade rules, certain regulations, even monetary policy for the Eurozone countries.
And, as the Hindu piece notes, that hasn't always sat comfortably, has it?
No, definitely not. You see discontent, people feeling decisions made far away don't reflect their national interests or values.
Which fuels things like Brexit or the rise of nationalist parties across Europe, that feeling of lost control.
Precisely. The economic benefits and democratic cooperation didn't, for some, outweigh the perceived loss of national self-determination. It shows that trade-off very clearly.
Okay, configuration number 2, prioritizing globalization and national sovereignty. Here, mass politics might take a bit of a back seat. The example given is governance leaning more on technocrats, like independent central banks.
Yeah, the thinking here is, to stay competitive globally and maintain national control, maybe you need experts making key economic decisions, insulated somewhat from immediate popular pressure.
Policies focused on market stability, attracting investment, things that might be technically sound, but maybe not always popular.
That can happen, yes. And the Hindu brings up Kenya and IMF-imposed austerity as an example of the friction this can cause.
Right. Global financial demands clashing with what people need or want domestically, leading to protests, a feeling of powerlessness.
It creates a democratic deficit, potentially. People feel decisions are being made over their heads, driven by external forces or unelected bodies.
So the trade-off for staying open globally and keeping national control might be, well, less direct democratic input on some key economic policies.
That's the risk. And it raises questions about long-term stability. You might get efficiency in the short run, but if people feel ignored, it can fuel backlash against both globalization and the government itself.
Okay, then the third way. Prioritizing national sovereignty and democracy, but putting some limits on globalization. Sometimes called the Bretton Woods compromise model.
Mm.
India and China are mentioned as examples here, with their histories of more controlled economic integration.
Both nations, though very different politically, have historically managed their engagement with the global economy quite carefully.
Protecting certain industries, regulating foreign investment.
Exactly, focusing on building national capacity, maintaining control, and ensuring some level of domestic accountability, even if it meant not integrating quite as deeply or quickly into global markets as some others did.
The source does note, though, that this model can sometimes come with its own trade-offs,
Yeah.
perhaps around individual freedoms or tolerance for dissent.
That's a potential downside, yes.
Yeah.
The emphasis on national cohesion and control might, in some contexts, lead to restrictions in other areas.
So again, a different set of choices, different potential costs, no perfect solution that gets you all three maximized.
No, it seems not. Each path involves navigating these inherent tensions. And this really leads us to the big challenge facing many Western democracies today.
Which, according to the analysis in the Hindu, using Rodrik's lens, comes from trying, maybe implicitly, to have all three. Deep globalization, full sovereignty, and vibrant democracy. For a long time, there was this assumption they could all go hand in hand.
But globalization, as we know, hasn't benefited everyone equally, has it?
Not at all. Think about manufacturing decline in parts of the US, the UK, Europe. Lots of communities felt left behind, economically insecure.
And that created an opening, didn't it? Fertile ground for populist movements.
Exactly. Leaders like Trump, Wilders in the Netherlands, Orban in Hungary, they tapped into that grievance. Anger against globalization, immigration, the establishment.
Offering a platform that's often more protectionist, more nationalist. Take back control.
Right, which really throws into question the sustainability of that traditional Western model, trying to juggle all three balls perfectly.
It does. These populist movements might offer an alternative, but they often deepen societal divides and can challenge democratic norms themselves.
So the key takeaway from Rodrik's Trilemma, as discussed in the Hindu, seems to be that this balancing act is fundamentally unstable. Trying to fully achieve deep globalization, complete national sovereignty, and full mass democracy simultaneously just doesn't seem to hold in the long run.
You have to choose your priorities, essentially. A nation can realistically sustain maybe 2 out of the 3.
And looking forward, the Hindus suggest Western democracies really need a new strategy, one that actually acknowledges these trade-offs.
Continuing to pretend you can have it all might just lead to more social unrest, more economic problems.
So what does that new strategy look like? Well, the analysis hints at needing to distribute the benefits of globalization much more fairly.
And revitalizing democratic institutions, making sure they actually represent everyone, not just the winners of globalization.
Bringing it back to you, the UPSC aspirant, preparing for your exams, especially for mains, current affairs, but also your broader prelims understanding. Think about India.
India's unique path.
Yeah, it's got increasing globalization, a very strong emphasis on national sovereignty, and a complex, massive democratic system. Where does India actually sit within this trilemma right now?
That's a great question for analysis.
What are the potential challenges, the trade-offs India might face down the road as it navigates this? Really reflect on that using this framework. Remember, our discussion is informed by analysis from the Hindu.
It's not about finding one simple answer, but Rodrik's framework gives you a powerful tool, to structure your thinking about India's choices in a global context.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up our deep dive on Dani Rodrik's political trilemma. We hope this has given you, our dedicated UPSC aspirants, a really valuable way to analyze some critical global issues.
Hopefully useful for your prep.
If you found this helpful, please do hit that like button. And subscribe to the deep dive for more analysis like this. We'd also love to hear from you in the comments, any questions, or your own thoughts on where countries fit in this trilemma.
Yeah, your engagement really helps us figure out what topics are most useful for your UPSC journey.
Thanks for tuning in.